08094440981. That is the WhatsApp number. Please try to keep those messages short and sweet. Makes it easier to read. Let's be civil as well, and just try to hit the nail on the head. I know that the stories can get you in some sort of way, so I'm just, pleading with you to make the messages as concise as possible. We're also streaming on YouTube. You can find us at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. That's the handle on YouTube. You can also drop your thoughts there, and I'll take them as we go along. Joining me to take a look at the stories and, of course, analyze them, give perspective. Chibuzor is in with me on a Tuesday morning. Good morning to you, Chibuzor. Great to have you on a Tuesday.
Good morning.
Are you there, Chibuzor?
It's good to be here. Good morning, Lagos.
It looks like the network is trying to get involved in the conversation this morning. I hope it clears up. We'll try to clear that one up.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Lagos.
All right. Good morning to you, Chibuzor. I'm hoping that it clears up as we get along. But let's dive into the stories and take a look at what new stories are making the rounds this morning. Quite a bit of different things that we need to get into. Let's start in the Guardian this morning and talk about IDPs. Yes, the NBS have put out some numbers once again, and it's important that we bring this one to the fore. Now, Borno State has been identified as having the highest number of internally displaced households in Nigeria, according to a survey conducted by the National Bureau of Statistics, that's the NBS. Now, the survey released yesterday shows that Borno accounts for 206,753 out of the national total of 251,082 internally displaced households. Now, the report also estimates that Nigeria is home to about 1,134,828 internally displaced persons. That's IDPs. Now, it further revealed that 83.4% of IDPs have spent over 4 years in shelters or in camps, while 12.4% have been displaced for 2 to 3 years. Now, only 0.2% have experienced displacement for a few days. And this study covered 7 states. Adamawa was included, Yobe, Borno, Sokoto, Katsina, Benue, and Nasarawa as well. Chibuzor, looking at this report and those numbers, they are on one hand very damning numbers, and on the other hand, very sad to look at that we have over 1 million people who are displaced within their own country. Now, that is a very, very sorry state of affairs. Okay, looks like technical issues are still playing a part here. I will try to get Chibuzor on to get his...
Hi.
Okay, I can hear you now, Chibuzor. I hope you heard my submission.
Okay, we're on the IDP story.
Yes, we are.
Fantastic. Sorry about that. So, Nigeria is ranked Nigeria's ranked 12th in international IDP numbers that's internal displaced people. For those of us who are not aware of what that is, and what we have here is basically that you have about 1.1 million displaced which is 77% of the IDPs who want to go back home. So basically, we're looking at people. At the moment, we estimate that Nigeria has about 1.13 internally displaced IDPs. So some other numbers say about 1.2 million people who are internally displaced. That's IDPs. So basically, we mean that these are people within Nigeria who are basically living their lives as refugees at the moment. They spend 4 years in camps or in shelters or camps, and these shelters or camps are varying qualities depending on reports and depending on the experiences. and 83.4% of them have spent 4 years, 12.4 of them have spent 2 to 3 years. Now, for any one of us who've had the pleasure or luxury of living under our own roofs in wherever we've chosen to live within the communities that we can afford or we are staying, we do understand, or we would not be able to imagine having to be displaced within our own country due to conflict, or which is the major cause. Obviously, a lot of them are from places. A lot of these individuals are people who have been displaced due to conflicts in the parts of the north, due to the bandits, whatever, or whatever we choose to call them at any given time. Now, the major thing, a lot of them want to go home, but the major challenge with them going home at the moment is obviously security, according to them. Even their current living standards in the camps are being affected by things such as the quality of the camps, lack of clothing, even their supports. And we have various states in that. We have the Borno has even the highest number of camps with 221. Benue has had a higher number, has 34 camps. A lot of the camps in Benue, for instance, are based on people who are displaced outside of that state, of Benue state, who have come in, or people from the outskirts of the major towns who have also been affected. You have Katsina, Yobe, Sokoto, Nasarawa also contributing. Now, the major issue now, and this is one of the things that raises the questions with the continued insurgencies or issues within the country, is that a lot of the people want to go home, but there's a major question about security. Will they find are their homes secure enough for them to be able to live in if you got additional disruptions? Now, on one hand, a lot of the government officials and the security forces will tell us, yes, that things are improving or things have improved, that Nigerians are safer now than they were safer 4 years or 3 years ago. But it's not enough to just say it. They need to be able to prove it to these people so that these people can make the steps to go back home. And obviously, going back home for people who have been uprooted from where they've lived in, or where they had lived previously, and is going to take a lot of things. So it's not just about asking them to go back home. It's also about making options possible for them to go back home. So security is a major factor, but helping them to rebuild is also something that is required for them to be able to go back home and live the quality of lives that are desired, at least as citizens of any country in the world. So those are some of the challenges that they would face at the moment. Well, yes, it speaks to a bigger problem that we are, because we are behind countries like Syria, Ukraine, countries that are active war situations.
Exactly. That's the scary part of it.
For us. So we need it's something that we need to take seriously, because we can't afford to keep growing refugee camps or IDPs internally. We can't afford it. It's not good for any nation. When I look at the list of nations to have in this kind of circumstance, I don't see any of them as a growing or developing country that is making progress. And if that's the direction that we want to go, then we need to buck this trend and go and try and resolve these issues.
Most definitely. Before we leave this particular matter, Chibuzor, could you speak to or highlight what the effect would be on the rest of the country if this trend were to continue? We've seen over 1 million people who have been displaced in various camps all over, at least in the 7 states that were highlighted in this particular report. Now, if this trend were not to be bucked, as you've said it has to be, what could be the effect on the rest of the country in terms of some of these people probably not being able to go back to their homes? They need to find other places to go, and also in terms of the resources that would be needed in order to keep these camps going as well. That's another story entirely.
So I'll give you a personal experience. I got married in Makurdi, Benue State about 10 years ago. The first time I went to Makurdi, my first village to live in, it was sparsely populated. It was sparsely populated. It was orderly. It was I think it was basically an open space. It was like a bus stop. The next time I went there, I think it was like 2 or 3 months after, that place was completely populated. What had happened? A lot of people had been displaced from conflicts from the outskirts of Makurdi and from other towns, and they had relocated to Benue State, which was relatively safe. At least Makurdi was quite safe and has remained quite safe in that through the period. and they had relocated there, and that place had become congested.
Okay.
Over time, from there, you now opened up various IDP camps that needed to be taken care of. I recall that at the end of my wedding, when we finished quite early at my wedding, so the excess food, all the excess food that was left over was taken to the IDP camps by my mother-in-law. That was basically what happened on that day. And what has happened was, apart from you have the states that are now being stretched because people have to provide for these IDP camps, the government obviously spend a lot more money on instead of developmental programs on having to provide for its people that have been put in these camps. There is a lot of tension now happening because of there's a push on state resources, because if you have a town or a city like me that was catering for X number of people, you now have X plus Y. It now also stimulates a lot of the internal tensions you have within those communities. Some of these guys, some of these people are not as receptive of these people in spite of their challenges. You have all sorts of people coming in, and anything that happens is the same. This almost like an immigrant mindset. If anything goes wrong, it has to be from the IDPs or the guys who have come in. They are not part of our community. They are responsible for everything going wrong. There's a lot of tension and stress that is causing from. But largely, if you take into consideration the goodwill of Nigerian people and trying to look out for our neighbors and taking care of them, the major impact is that what is driving the security issues. It is challenging for us to move forward as a country if we can have to keep dealing with this massive scale of security issues. We can't keep going to try and sell ourselves as a destination for investment or a destination for tourism, for instance, when over 1.2 million of our own people cannot stay where cannot live where they ought to be living because of they do not feel secure. So it's an image problem there, but there's also the internal tensions within the peoples, how they live with each other. There's a push on resources, because there's a push on resources for the people. And even long term, you have generations of people, the children that are being born. A lot of them are going to be born in camps. A lot of them are going to be out of school and contribute to our out of school children.
Right.
And if we do not plan for this properly or manage this properly, we're not just talking about now. We're talking about the next 10 years. Another generation of children will be born who have not gone to school. Another generation of people who have been displaced will bring up another generation of displaced people, and we'll have to feed them back into society. So it's a major challenge that we're facing. And, we have 1.2 now. We need to be careful so we don't expand these numbers to larger, expand this to larger. And this 1.2, we're talking about the documented official numbers.
Right.
A lot of people are displaced, but did not end up in the IDP camps.
All right, thank you for that, Chibuzor. And I'm also glad you mentioned attracting investment, because we're heading into another story in the Daily Trust that talks about that. Now, a total of 32 out of 36 states and the FCT attracted zero capital importation, that's foreign investments, in the first 9 months of 2024, up from 27 states in the whole of 2023. That's according to the latest capital importation data from the NBS for the third quarter of 2024. Now, Nigeria's total capital importation for the third quarter of 2024 witnessed a 51.9% decline from the previous quarter, falling to $1.25 billion. Now, looking at these numbers and juxtaposing that with the story we just talked about, now could those sort of issues be, should I say, adding to why these numbers have dropped? That's even minus the other issues that we're dealing with in the country right now.
So while those issues could possibly be factors, obviously, I think the underlying issue is a major factor, at least from where I sit, which is security. But there are other issues. Obviously, you have people being displaced. It shows the amount of development happening in those states. In truth, when you are looking for investments, you're basically offering something for somebody to come and add value to. So they are bringing money, and the entire idea of an investment, either a social or an economic investment, is that they want to be able to get value out of it at the end of the day. They want to be able to put their money down into something and know that, hey, at the end of X number of months, X number of years, I will get this value out of it. Either it's social or it's economic. So I'm either going to get, if I'm an NGO, non-for-profit, I'm going to get this value about us relating to development. It's going to change. It's going to offer this facility that didn't exist there or something of that nature. If it's economic, as an investor, I'm bringing in this money and I'm going to get X fold, either X times the value I'm putting into the ground. And for that period while I'm doing it, or whatever my investment is on that ground, I am guaranteed that it is safe, it is secure, and it will grow the yield that is required. Those are the questions investors will ask when they want to bring in their wealth. The other part is who is attracting those investors. When you step out to say you are looking for investors, are people guaranteed? Are people sure about what you're putting on the table? What are you putting on the table in the first place? What are you presenting and saying, this is what I'm offering you? What is your value statement? What makes you different from me? What let that investor say, I'm going to bring in this value instead of keeping it in my bank account and allowing to yield, if it's a single digit interest, I just still allow my money to sit down there and chill. Those are the questions the investors ask. Can I trust you? Can I trust you? Are you coming straight? Because, let's not lie to ourselves. There's different types of investors. There are the portfolio investors. There are the guys who see Nigeria and see Africa or see whatever the countries like Nigeria as just a place where they come and make a killing. They, in quotes, say that they understand how to do business here, which means they basically want to oil the wheels and aggrandize people and offer them whatever they need to offer and get whatever value they want to offer. And most times those benefits don't go to the people. So, but if you don't have those kind of people there, if you have people who are straight up investors who just want to come in, do business and go get value and go out, and don't want to fall into whatever traps or whatever demands by corrupt or unethical individuals who ask them, are they willing to take that plunge and come into this? So we need to have a deep look at ourselves and say, what are we offering in terms of value? What are we offering in terms of ease of coming in to do business? One of the things, there's the ease of doing business report that used to come out back in the days of I think it was the last regime that was being driven by the then vice president. That came out at the national level. One of the questions I kept asking, and I've asked friends around me, that do we have similar type reports at the state level? When I go into a state and I want to incorporate a business, I want to do a business, do I have something that tells me these are the permits I need to pay for? This is what I need to do to set up a business. If I want to do XYZ business, I can go through his website or a list and say, I need to make these A, B, C, D payments that will cover me at the state government, local government, whatever I need to make, so that I don't set up shop today and a group of young boys come in and with vests, either neon vest or whatever vest, and shut me down. Those are kind of things that I would look out for. And on the other side, you now look at how is your currency doing? When your investors are looking at it and they're saying, okay, can I get value if I bring in X amount of my Forex and against this currency? Because when I need to repatriate my funds, it's one thing about making my money, it's another thing about how do I repatriate my funds. So they would need guarantees at particular levels. Are we creating the kind of environment that allows for those things? So those are questions we need to ask internally. Then do we have the right people driving these investment discussions? And we're not and specifically to the states, because yes, there's been a lot of talk about not enough attention being paid to the states and local government levels, and it's partly true. Are we hiring the right type of people at all levels of political position in Nigeria? Do we have the right kind of people who are going there with the mindset for driving investments, of driving growth, of driving development for their states? Is this part of their plan? Or are we tied to governors and state leaders who only seek and wait for IGR to be distributed at the end of the month? For the FAQ to be distributed at the end of each month. And that's the only way that they drive their state. So if we have the latter, obviously, we would not, there's little development that will happen if we only have the latter.
True.
You do need people who are going to be upfront, who have development plans and are selling their states at every point. My belief has, and this has always been my belief, that every state in Nigeria has some value that can be sold if the person wants to sell it for. If the governors and the people in charge of those states need to drive it properly, it can be sold as individual states. You can come together as a collective, either as partnering as states or partnering as regions to sell those values. But until get to that point where we're ready to do business, we'll be where we are. So hey, I'm hoping that people are ready to do business at some point.
We're really, really hoping that is going to change. Let us talk about Daily Farasmin really quick here, because I mean that is one story that we've been keeping a key eye on. There's an update yesterday as the Federal High Court in Ado-Ekiti State granted Daily Farasmin bail at the sum of 50 million naira. Now the court's decision was disclosed by the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress in the 2023 election. That's Omoyele Sowore via his X handle on Monday. And it says that he was granted bail of 50 million naira shorty in the like sum with someone with landed property. And the case has been adjourned to January 29th, 2025. Now, if you cast your mind back, on Wednesday, December 7th, Farotimi was remanded in prison custody by the Ado-Ekiti Magistrate Court following his arrest on 16 counts of criminal defamation. Of course, it comes off the heels of his alleged defamation of Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Are Afe Babalola, in his recently published book titled Nigeria and Its Criminal Justice System. We haven't had the opportunity to talk about this particular story, but looking at this update right now, let me get your thoughts on this.
Okay, my thoughts on this. When I first heard about this, I thought this was a bit high-handed. There was some debate, and I know it was a bit covered. I think it was covered last week, Thursday, slightly here, and there was some debate about why Chief Babalola had chosen to go to Ekiti as opposed to Lagos, where Mr. Farotimi was located and where the book had been launched and all that. And there was some thought that obviously Chief Babalola chose where he had more influence and power, and obviously where he was resident and where he could call the shots. And we saw the police swing into very effective action. They obviously took it from Ekiti State, took the long ride or short ride from Ekiti State to Lagos State, took Mr. Farotimi, took him back to Ekiti State, and as in he's been in custody since then. Now, one of the things that come out for me is how quickly the police were able to come, how effective the police were in performing that mandate, which is good to see, and we do hope to see it happen in a lot of other types of cases in the future. The other thing that comes out to me, obviously, is that the case itself brings a lot of things. So there's obviously the part about, reputations that have been soiled, and Chief Babalola had actually written or asked, through his lawyers had asked that they retract the contents of the books and some of the statements made there. And he's, in his own words, has taken to defend his reputation, which has been earned over the last decade. So which is great. He has a right to do that. I think I would like to see. I get a bit concerned when the likes of Mr. Sowore starts making comments like this, because at the end of the day, it's now in court, so it's become an issue of judicial. It's under judicial handling. It's been handled by the judiciary, right?
Right.
While it's always good to keep it in the news so that people are aware of what is happening, and there's always going to be some back channeling to try and resolve it. I think this is what it is. This is where the case has gotten to. It is now Mr. Farotimi and his lawyers. It's now their job to try and prove that there's no case here. So Mr. Sowore can talk all about being physical and it should be thrown out. And yeah, some people would agree here, some people would disagree here. But at the end of the day, that can only happen on the court. There is another talk about another of the presidential candidates from the last election who is also trying to go through back channels to try and sort this out also. So we are seeing a lot of movements there, but we're also seeing a lot of court movements. And we've had different viewpoints by different lawyers saying, no, this is, this is wrong, this is right, this is how it's going to go, this is how it's not going to go. Mr. Farotimi has spent some good time behind bars in the backs, in the custody and in the warm embraces of the Ekiti State Police. And I think the IGP has also gone a step further now to add some charges of cybercrime. I am getting a bit worried about how quickly IGP is willing to jump on this kind of cases these days, as against other cases where it would have been calling for attention. But hey, it's the mandate of the police, and it's within his jurisdiction to do what he chooses to do. We do hope that at the end of the day that there will come to be some settlement. And for me also, it will also clarify a lot of things when it comes to this type of cases, because we are seeing it, apart from Mr. Farotimi, we are seeing a lot of things in, for instance, there's someone happening within some particular musicians that is happening in the background now, where some other musician has been locked up for his comments about another one. And, there's been a lot of back and forth about that one, although I don't think it's gone through the formal judicial process yet.
I'm
I
not sure it
think, and it's
has. I'm not
just,
sure it has.
I'm not sure that, I think somebody's just spending good money to facilitate things and make sure that the other person suffers. But I would like us to get some clarity about how some of these laws on defamation of character are to be used or are being used, so that it will serve us better in the future. Because one, people who would try to defame or would be a bit more, will be, at least would understand what the impacts of some of their comments and statements would be are in the future. Also, we also understand the limits and the extent of our freedom of speech rights and how they can be applied. Because a lot of people come out and argue, oh, this is a breach of freedom of speech. He's written a book, he's right to write a book. The book is printed in X place, he can only be arrested in X place. The thing I like about going to court and court cases going through their processes, that at the end of the day, you set some precedents
Mm.
which can now be used rightly, well, hopefully rightly, to sort out other cases that might come in the future. So that's what we expect to see at the end of the day. We do hope that this adds some value, and it doesn't become a case of, I have more money than you do have, so I'm going to ride short over you. So that's what we are hoping to happen at the end of the day. So
That's
let's
what
see
we're
how it
hoping.
pans out. What I can say is that the book has become a bestseller because some people, despite all the
All the
legal things, have
attention
been
has been
distributing. Yeah,
all the
they've been
attention
distributing the
has
book.
been taken in the direction of the book, which is the opposite of what Ari Afebabala actually would want. I mean, he wouldn't want the attention on the book, but I mean, with this case now, everybody wants to read the book and find out what exactly was said in it.
Exactly. Yeah, I've heard people going to go and pick up the book. I've heard people, I've heard about people distributing the books, electronic copies of the books online for people to just go and read. It's taken off a life of its own. And the truth is that I had not heard of the book until Babalola had called for Mr. Farishimi's arrest. I had no idea that the book existed. And I think only one person in my circle had heard about it. But now, people are queuing up, on the line to read the book.
Here we are. All right, let's do some messages as we end the conversation this morning. This is Dio from Fagba, and he says, for me, for Dele to me, it's unfortunate that Afiba Balala is dragging his name and integrity in the mud using the police conspiracy and the judiciary. It's showing that this government wants to enslave and put Nigerians in a box for Nigerians not to fight for their rights. This government should be should be charged to the World Court for violation of human rights. Really, really, Dio, you're taking it to another level. Because it says it's a shame the worst of us is ruling the best of us. Truly, there was a country. All right. Ibukun from K2 says, I always wonder about the matrix the judiciary uses to set bail. What is the measure of the crime? Bail is set at 50 million naira. We need a clear-cut process so bail is not used to derive people of their freedom. I mean, I had similar thoughts as well. I mean, so how much would bail be set at if it were, let's say, a capital case, murder or something? I just wonder. And there's another one here. There's no name attached to it, but it says there's a video making the rounds on social media showing APC thugs chasing away PDP members from court premises during an election tribunal proceeding with security operatives looking away. Are we going to seriously keep telling ourselves that this madness is not orchestrated right from the very top? We are truly not serious as a people in Nigeria. Okay, well, first of all, the election tribunal in question happened where? Happened when? I mean, there are a number of questions to actually ask. I did not see the video, so I cannot speak to it as to who was chasing who or not chasing who. But thank you for bringing that to my attention. Let me see. Bola says concerning Dele Farotimi, he's acting out his book with the active participation of the main cast. I see what you did there. Thank you for putting that out there. But we're ready to end the show this morning. Thank you so much for your messages. And thank you, Chibuzor, for taking the time out to join me on Freshly Pressed this morning. Always a pleasure having you.
It'll be my pleasure once more. Have a lovely day.
All right. Thank you so very much. All right, then, Lagos, thank you for keeping it tuned to Smooth 98.1 and the Smooth Breakfast as well. Don't go anywhere. Keep it tuned. We're going to get into the grapevine in a little bit, 8:15 specifically. It's all about entertainment and all the gist around that. Don't go anywhere.